Good morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scouts' morning coffee or tea with AmericanScouts.com. Morning coffee is here, back to being the greatest dad. Actually, this is Layla's birthday today, too, so it's a two in one. And with us, our very own Egyptian king, Rami, is with us. It's the Rami Wednesday. Rami, what's going on, man?
Hey, team, we're happy to be here. Another Wednesday and just ready to talk some Liverpool with you today.
At least we got rid of the Messi jersey, I see. So that's a move in the right direction. So we're getting there
Yeah.
slowly but surely. Alan is with us as always every morning. Good morning, Alan. How's it going? So some news to get to, some rumors to get to, and I want to get your take on some things, especially one of the Messi is involved. So I was like, who better? And then we'll ask Rami kind of thing. We'll start the Liverpool stuff first. I know if you saw this, Jay Spearing was actually hospitalized. It's like a rare, like a gland disorder, and I guess it could be kind of like fatal. It was one of those that when I was reading his statement, it was like, hey, if you notice a change in your body, go get it checked out because it could be something very serious, like in this case was. I mean, obviously he's one of the U18 coaches, but he's also registered to be able to play as like the adult player. I'm sure there's a better term for that than adult player, but with the U21s as well. So, I mean, that's the good thing, I guess, because these guys get through so many checks and checkups and follow-ups and all that kind of stuff that this kind of stuff get caught. But yeah, it's scary stuff when something like this happens to somebody who's getting monitored that closely all these years and it now comes out. So God knows what you and me have, Rami. Yeah, Alan has shared the same news. Addison's disease, it's like a very rare thing, and I saw like a bunch of messages from youth players on the team, and obviously Jordan Henderson, who is, I mean, that dude is just like, you like did not even doubt there would be something from Jordan Anderson. I don't know. He has people that are like so good at this, or he is so involved with this. But so we send our well wishes to Sparing. There have been like way too many jokes when we were like, like when he first got there as a coach and stuff like that. We were like, hey, maybe we can throw him in the midfield and stuff. So hope he does gets better and does well because yeah, that's kind of like a scary ordeal. But I figured like we cover that headline. So let's get to the rumorville with Enzo. I mean, we can check the headlines, but I'm sure there's a new one now since we started like 3 minutes ago. What do you make of this whole Enzo thing? United's, Liverpool, Chelsea is in the mix now as well. Who's paying 100? Who's paying 120? Like I said yesterday, I'm very scared of this move. But being a bigger Argentina fan than I ever will be, what do you make of it? I mean, first of all, do you like the name and would you want the signing given the price tag?
Yeah, personally, I think Enzo's an exceptional player. I think he's really good. As you saw, he won Best Young Player at the World Cup, and he was kind of been tearing it up this season already at Benfica before the World Cup. But for me right now, I feel like it's starting to get into bidding war territory. And I don't think Liverpool really does bidding wars. Like you hear like a new price tag every, like you said, like every hour, every 30 minutes about like, oh, Chelsea's now willing to pay this or United's willing to pay this. And like I said, it kind of feels like bidding war territory, and I'm not really sure we're interested in that. That being said, I think he's a really good player, and I would love to see him in Liverpool's midfield. I think he'd fit in perfectly. But like I said, it's kind of getting to that point where it's like if we're gonna like some teams are willing to pay above the release clause. Like I heard Chelsea's willing to go over the release clause to get him. I think you're starting into some iffy territory there. So as much as I think he's a great player and I think he'd fit in, I just don't think we'll be able to make that signing. And for me personally, for the amount of money that he's asking, you can go get two, even three really solid midfielders. And so you have to ask yourself, is it worth, getting one really good young midfielder or maybe like two or three, like maybe Amrabat level signings? So yeah, that's kind
See,
of the
you
question.
threw in
Yeah.
the name. You threw in the name. Ryan must have watched us on Monday. He said, I go with the Moroccan. We were doing pronunciation 101, 101 on Monday with Amrabat because, yeah, I couldn't get Galley or Bickler to say the name properly. But, yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, because it just, okay, here's my thing. And this is just me, like this is just more speculation than anything like that. But I get the sense that if we spend that much money on Enzo, I just don't see us again spending that much money, if not more, on Bellingham. And I would much rather, if we're dumping that much cash on somebody, I would say Bellingham over Enzo any day. And I don't know, like I say, it might be because of the overall douchiness of like Argentina overall and his performance. But I know like it's the same thing when I'll be honest, when Jota goes to Portugal, we talked about this before. It's kind of like it's part of the ordeal over here. You're gonna put this jersey on, you're gonna be a little douchey on the field, kind of thing. So we've seen that too. And I don't know, that's kind of like clouds my judgment. I just feel like the body of work is not as big as what we've seen from Bellingham. Like I say, Bellingham has so many pluses, and it's just me. We might be able to get both. Everybody's like, "Oh, we're getting investment, new owners, and stuff like that." Even with new owners and stuff, I mean, I don't even see a team like City dumping 250, 300 million on two midfielders.
Yeah, no, I agree. And if it does come down to either or, I'm in the camp that I'm fully team Bellingham, especially because, like you said, Enzo Fernandez is still a little bit unproven. I mean, a year ago he was playing in South America and nobody really knew who he was. And all of a sudden now he's worth 120 million. I find that a little bit hard to believe. Versus Bellingham has, even from when he was at Birmingham City, it was kind of like, okay, this kid is special. Watch out for him. You know what I mean? Like he's been on the scene for like maybe 3 or 4 years now. So I think that's the difference. And like you said, it's hard to justify anybody spending nearly 300 million on just two players. So yeah, if it does come down to either or, I'm firmly in the camp that I'm team Bellingham.
Yeah, and do you think it would come to either or is it just my paranoia?
I don't know if it will, but like you said, it's hard to see it not coming down to either or. It just like, and for me personally, like I said, if we spend, let's just say 120 million on Bellingham, I would rather take that 120 million, sign two or three good players to supplement Bellingham and just like splashing the cash on Enzo. So we'll see. Like I said, it's not our money at the end of the day. I'll take, if they want to sign both, then go right ahead. It's not coming out of my paycheck. But at the end of the day, I just, in terms of like living in realism and not FIFA career mode world, I think it's just more realistic that we get Bellingham or Enzo, not both.
I gotta do FIFA career mode, by the way. I always get stuck. Once I go online, I always get stuck. And then I kind of promised myself I would not, but I did get suckered into Ultimate Team this year. So I'm just constantly playing Ultimate Team. I do have a kick-ass team, though, so that's a different story. And I'm not one of those guys who buys packs like these kids with their money and pack buying and shit. Saidu says, hello to Chin. Considering the strategy in the team, I'm looking into Amrabat till date for the January. So here's my thing with Amrabat. Or I can even Americanize it if it's fine, if you find it tricky to Amrabat, I just say the sense that the fact that his name comes up almost tells me it's not going to happen. Just because Alan says like Gakpo is at Liverpool now for like the check and stuff like that. Because we did not see that happening, and it just happened like that. And the way Liverpool does business, it usually just pops out of nowhere. The fact that Amrabat's name is being thrown around for so long, I just feel like might not be happening because we don't do it that obvious usually.
Right. And I kind of felt that same way. I was like, if we sign somebody in January, it's going to be somebody we haven't even been linked to or thought of yet. It's kind of the way this club operates. And like, I wouldn't even be surprised if Amrabat spends a couple more years at Fiorentina and just never gets that big move. He seems like one of those types of players that his agent's going to use names like Liverpool or United or whatever to drum up some interest, and then the bid just never comes and he just stays at Fiorentina. He just kind of feels like one of those players. I just use Amrabat as an example because that's the name, like you said, that we've been linked to. But yeah, who knows who? It could be Caicedo from Brighton. It could be, like I said, player we haven't even mentioned yet. It could be Barella from Inter. It could be anybody. You know what I mean? But because the way that's the club operates, we won't know until they're having their medical at Liverpool, basically.
Yeah, this whole Gakpo thing, like I said, when I was watching him at the World Cup, as great of a player as he was, and I'm like, yeah, he's gonna get a lot of money, and I don't see us getting in there just because, like I say, I just didn't see us. It wasn't a needs that we would have spent money on. So I didn't even consider them. Boom, bang! It's just like happens within he's like interested. Signed, he's coming over within like 5-6 hours. The whole thing was done, and that's what scares me about Amrabat. And that's like a really good point. There are a lot of players where, especially after the tournaments, their name gets thrown around. An agent is like, "Everybody wants my guy. You guys probably should just increase his wages, and he'll stay with you," kind of a deal. And then he kind of like reworks a new deal with the current team, who's afraid that somebody's gonna snatch him. They increased his release clause on the new contract, give him more wages, and then they're like, So where are all these people that were interested? They're like, gotcha, see you later, and then move on to the next one. So that's a good point. I can really see that happening as well. I mean, okay, well, let me ask you this. If we sign him, would you be satisfied with that signing for the midfield?
If we sign him in January and maybe sign Bellingham and maybe one more in the summer, I think I'd be satisfied with that. I think he'd come and do the job that Fabinho does, and I think he'd do it almost just as well, at least to start. And I think as he gets up to speed, he'd do it just as well as Fabinho. I think he's also a little bit more technically gifted on the ball than Fabinho, so I think he'd also add a bit an extra dimension to our midfield in that sense. I think he'd come in and do a good job, and I wouldn't really be disappointed with that. But that being said, like I said, I'll be really surprised if he's wearing Liverpool red by the end of January.
Yeah, it's an odd one because I think we're on the same page on that one. The fact that his name comes up so often scares me that we were like, we're not interested at all. We're just like laughing every time we see the headline in the club kind of a deal. But we will see. We're almost there. We're almost there in 3 days. We'll be in January, so some signings will happen. So a couple of headlines to get to. I thought of you first thing when I saw this morning. The PSG boss says, Messi and Mbappe will get along just fine. I don't even know why they would get into it. And he kind of like, denies the suggestions of a rift. Having seen how your boy has acted in the World Cup and how Mbappe has now owns a couple of suburbs in Paris to be able to stay there, how do you see that unfolding? I just don't see any way where they can see each other in the locker room and be like, dude, that final was a great game, huh? And then get back to practice.
Right. And it might take a while. Like, to be honest, they're humans at the end of the day, but that being said, they are professionals. And from what I can tell, Mbappe and Messi are the highest level of professionals. And so I think maybe like a week or two just to get that human element out of the way. But I think once they start assisting each other to goal for goals or, whatever, like Messi setting up Mbappe and vice versa on the counter attack, I think all of that, like there's this quote that, winning heals everything. And if they start winning games, maybe eliminating Bayern in the Champions League, then I think all of that's going to be forgotten very, very quickly. So I don't think Mbappe is going to hold it personally against Messi. And I don't think Messi would have anything against Mbappe. So we'll see. I think, like I said, it might be a little bit awkward at first, but I think they're professional enough to figure it out.
I don't know if I'm a lot more cynical because I'm a lot older than you, or like reversely, you just there's no way in hell. And let the record show, Rami, you do me wrong like that, you're never forgiven. So I mean that, but I do agree with the thing that winning will not make things forgiven. I think winning will make things put in the back pocket for now.
Right.
And the moment something goes bad, that shit is coming out of the pocket and getting thrown on the table because I just that shit doesn't get forgiven. And I think it's almost, to me at least, I mean, you might be right. I mean, Messi better than I do, but I mean, you might be right. But I just feel like the fact that these guys are professional at the level that they're at, it's just not about, when you say professionalism, they're like robots. They don't let feelings get involved. I think it's almost like 10 times worse. The egos are so big that even something that you and I might consider minor, they really take it to heart and they get really a lot more offended because of it, just because of that ego. So, but I think you're right. As long as PSG is doing well, I mean, and this is like how freaking like crappy the French league is. He's like, oh, he'll be back next week sometime. Like they don't even care because they're like, we're gonna win the league anyway. As long as he's here for Champions League, that's what we care, kind of a deal. But yeah, I mean, if something goes south in the Champions League, that's when everything will start coming out. Like I say, it wasn't just like, oh, he beat him in the final and stuff. The celebrations, the knocks on Mbappe, the baby Mbappe and stuff, which I still do not freaking understand because the guy kicked their ass in the final really by himself pretty much up top. So, but I don't think that shit gets forgotten. But I think you're right. If they keep winning, it will be kind of put on the side for now. But I think that, I mean, that's coach talk where they're like, what problem? But I'm sure like as he's watching that, he's cringing, saying, oh my God, this is going to be a huge mess. But speaking of another mess, Mudryk, we were talking about it with Matush yesterday because I knew he was kind of like big on it. Arsenal is going after him. 65 was what was offered. They're holding out for hundreds. Doesn't sound like it's going to eventually get done, but with somewhere in between where Shakhtar is like, man, there's a lot of people out there trying to sign people. We're gonna maximize what we get out of this guy.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy. The market's it's crazy at this point that any player you can put 100 million price tag on it, and some teams will be willing to meet that. It's kind of crazy. Like Mudrik, I watched. I'll be honest, I didn't know about him before the season. I watched him in the Champions League with Donetsk, but I thought he was a really good player. But I don't think he's 100 million good, and I think Arsenal know that too. So it's going to be interesting to see whether they do pay that. I thought like 50 to 60 million was more of a, and in dollars is more of a fair fee, but 100 million, just like the market's gotten ridiculous. But like they say in economics, the market is what the buyer is willing to pay, and if Arsenal is willing to pay that, then that's what he's worth. So we'll see what happens there. But it's just kind of crazy how like I'll to use the NBA term, like role players are getting basically 100 million price tags.
Yeah, right. The 100 number is being thrown around. It's almost like really lazy on the small clubs. I think they're like, what is he worth? 100, and then they just like throw that tag on there. It feels like so. And I think it's when you see one guy being tagged 100. If Mudrik is tagged 100, the other guy says, well, my guy is 100 too. So everybody like Enzo's 100. Everybody throws the 100 on there. Is it because they know more than normal, especially in the Premier League? It's a lot more competitive, and you can kind of tell with Newcastle in the mix now too. The top four is going to be a really tough battle overall. Is it because they know there are so many teams out there who are A, desperate, B, have the money, so they can kind of like throw these numbers out there, and like you're saying, it's a seller's market. Somebody's going to come in and be like, I guess, and then pay the 100 and get the guy.
Yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. I think the gap in the Premier League and the rest between the Premier League and the rest of the leagues is growing for sure. And I think some teams basically want in on that. If you're a team like Donetsk and you have a player who is basically like, when else are you gonna have a player that's gonna be this valuable? You want to maximize how much you can get for him. So it's kind of one of those things. It's like say 100, and if they pay it, great. But if not, like, we get to keep our player. It kind of feels like that to a certain degree. So we'll see. It's just gotten ridiculous, and it's kind of worrying because who knows when in 5 years 100 mil will seem normal, and then 150 will be the new 100 mil, and it just keeps getting more and more until the only teams that can sign anybody are like the top 6 in the Premier League. So I don't know. It's kind of a worrying trend, but that's the state of the world and world football, especially right now.
I guess the money coming in is going up too, so it's all like fair game at the end of the day. I do agree with Mudrik though. I mean, I saw him a lot more of him obviously this year as well, and here's another thing: like, it's huge risk to sign a player from that league in a team that plays that style, especially in Europe, and then kind of like bring him in, because that's what I worry about a lot of like the wing players, especially when they come from like smaller teams, is because they're used to playing counter, so they're used to having that space on the counter. Whereas when you play at Liverpool, at United, at City, you're playing against teams usually at least half the time at home who sit back, and it's really tight. There is no spaces. So are you going to be able to function in those little spaces? So it's a huge ask and a huge risk to spend 100 to try to get a guy that you don't even know if he's going to be able to cope with that as well as you like it to, especially in the pace that the Premier League is played in and stuff like that. So that kind of like brings me so let's talk about that a little bit. That was the biggest thing for me in this Gakpo deal, was the fact that it's like 37 with obviously like some add-on clauses that goes up to 50, I think, seems a small risk for a guy that's actually pretty established and does play against teams that sit back in the Dutch league.
Yeah, when I saw the fee that we were getting him for, I was like, that's a great piece of business, especially since last year he was about to be sold for a similar figure, and so for the fact that we were able to basically pay the same price that he was quoted at or during the summer, I think that was a great piece of business. And I also think, like you said, he's been playing in the Europa League and Champions League qualifiers. The Eredivisie is a good league, and he's been tearing it up there. And so I think he's going to translate. He's already 23 years old, so he's like more developed physically, stuff like that. So I think he'll be a great fit, and I was really excited by that. Like we talked about, it just kind of came out of nowhere a little bit, but when you look at like the details of the deal, I think it's a great fit. We don't really have a left wing right now with all our injuries and stuff. So he's going to come in and play instantly, and he already knows Virgil. all these things. I think he's going to be a great fit. And also something that's underrated in his game that I thought I was watching highlight videos I really liked is just his right foot. Like he hits the ball kind of like Trent. Like he's really good on corner kicks, on free kicks, whipping the ball into the box for crosses. I think him and Nunez are going to form a really good partnership. So I'm really excited about this deal, and I can't wait to see him play.
So has PSV not gotten the memo? Like they're like, oh shit, man, we should have asked for 100. I just was shocked that they would, because I figured it was a player that would have a bidding war very easily, and for like they did not even try to. And I realize, this is like a long-term deal. You can't just kind of like be douchey for one deal, because next year you're going to be dealing with Liverpool and United and stuff again. So you want to have like good working relationships and stuff like that. But I was kind of amazed that they did not use Liverpool to draw out the price for United or vice versa.
Yeah, I agree. I also thought, because this was the price that was kind of being quoted before the World Cup. So I thought with the World Cup that he had, the price would have gone up. But I think part of it was a little bit of goodwill towards Gakpo from PSV, because that's his childhood club. So maybe they're just like, yeah, we get it. It's time for you to go to a bigger club. We'll do our best, meet the team that you want to go to halfway, and help you. We'll still secure a big fee, but also help you go to a team that you want to go to. So I think that's kind of maybe what happened a little bit. Just they weren't really serving against their own best interest, but it was just maybe more, like I said, a bit of goodwill towards Gakpo to help him get to wherever he wanted to go.
Yeah, I can see that. Actually, that makes sense. I mean, I don't know if it was like one of those deals where they're like, yeah, you've been good to us, we'll take care of you. I just kind of figured, at the same time, they always do, like they always do the, come on, like we helped you get to this point. You gotta, kind of like help us capitalize and stuff as well, and try to like get the player to kind of like milk the ordeal. I was trying to see where PSV is right now, and then that's the thing, like PSV is third right now, only 3 points behind Feyenoord, and Ajax is there as second. It's the usual suspects on top. I mean, it is a pretty top-heavy league, and I actually kind of like that in that sense that, like I say, he's used to playing against, yes, a much lower level of competition compared to the Premier League, but he's used to playing against teams that sit back and where they have to like kind of like create something and open up space and stuff like that. I do like that in a player, because they're going to face it a lot. Like having all the speed in the world and stuff is nice and dandy, but you're going to be able to like use it. Ten Hag's agent is also Gakpo's agent. I mean, that's the thing. It was, look, we watched this guy in the World Cup. Even before that, everybody knew. I mean, his stock, like you said, was already high before the World Cup. It only got even higher during the World Cup. And that was one big reason I was like, he came to a price point that there's no way. Like, this guy is going to be a good player, but not for Liverpool, probably is where I was at. What do you think makes, we talked about PSV, what do you think makes Gakpo instead come to a team that's kind of like really stacked up top? I mean, maybe not right now because of injuries, but normally, like, this looks like a luxury on paper if everybody was healthy. What do you think he like picks? It almost felt like maybe PSV went along with it because he said, yeah, I'd rather go to Liverpool anyway. And they're giving you the guys cash up front. Everybody's happy. Let me go. I mean, he did the player talk earlier when they asked United. They're like, oh, it's a big club. It'd be an honor, like press the button, like he would probably say for any club. But you think it's because Gakpo's preference to come to Liverpool or PSV's preference to sell to Liverpool?
I think it was Gakpo for sure. I think it came down to his choice. I'm sure United matched whatever bid we made, so I think it just came down to his choice. And that's a good point. Like if you're him, you already have Diaz and to a lesser extent Jota ahead, like playing that same position. So you got to ask yourself, can you beat out those guys? And I think he signs. I think they said a 6-year contract. He's 23, so he's going to be here for most of his prime. I think he's probably betting on himself that by next season or whatever, that he's the type of player that Klopp can bench. That Diaz will have to come off the bench, or even Nunez if they put Gakpo up top, something like that. And also, if he's been watching us the past 2, 3, 4 years, he'll know we get a lot of injuries in the squad. So he'll know that, he'll have his opportunity one way or another, if we're being honest.
These guys are hurt all the time. I'll be playing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he might.
Yeah, but at the same time, he'll be like, before I know it, I'll be a freaking center back or a right back or some shit too. True. But I think the fact that he can play like a multiple positions that kind of helps the goal. Obviously, Mo is not getting younger. Really, it's going to be key to see if either Diaz or, you know, him can go to the right side, because really that's where we need the help more than the left hand side. I mean, right now we need the left hand side, but Mo's not getting any younger. And like when Diaz comes back, like you said, I mean, we kind of like totally forgot about Diaz, but when he left with that injury, at that point, he was probably our best player the last 12 months, like outfield player, if you take Allison out of the equation. So we kind of forget how good he was and what he did on that side. So when he comes back, I would think, it would be useful to be able to have Gakpo go towards up the middle or towards the right-hand side. And he's played some midfield and stuff too. But either way, I don't think anybody can deny, even United fans who don't want to make the big deal out of them losing out once again, are like, yeah, he was a good player. But then, obviously it was like, well, let's see if he can do it in the Premier League. But you can say that with anybody. And I think that's where the 37 million comes into play. So we're not going to see you until next Wednesday. Give me a prediction for this Friday. What do you expect to happen this Friday against Leicester?
I hope I don't end up regretting these words, but I think it should be an easy win. Leicester's, right. It's always those ones that get you. I thought Leeds and Nottingham Forest were going to be easy wins too, so we'll see. But I think Leicester's struggling right now. Even though they did pick up some form before the World Cup, I think they're still, struggling a bit. And I think we looked a lot better on Monday than we did. Or when did we play? Yeah, Monday. Than we did before the World Cup. So we'll see. Hopefully, we don't. Concede a ton of chances again, like we have been, and keep it solid at the back. And we've been doing good creative chances. So hopefully we score first. And I think if we score first, it'll probably be like a 2 or 3 goal win for sure.
Yeah, Ryan says 2-0, good guys. I can go with that. Yeah. Alan is going with the 4-0. Alan has got to copy paste, I think, because he had the 4-0 going last game too. But Madison, I think, is still out. It's just like kind of like a weird team to play against, because I mean, we saw even in this last game that there are going to be moments, and I feel like you have like somebody like Vardy and stuff like that, and I know he's aging and it's not the old Vardy, but still it's somebody who when given the chance they can finish, and that's kind of like my worry, getting on the counter and not being able to open them up afterwards. Saidu says 2-0 as well. I'll go with you guys. I mean, I'm all for a 2-0 or a 4. I'm all for a 4-0 to be honest, but yeah, I'm afraid, like you're saying, Rami, it's on paper, whenever it looks too easy, it kind of like backfires. But I think it'd be important to keep stacking up these 3 points, because this top 4 battle, which is what we're in it for now for Premier League, is going to be tough. So, and until the January enforcements come, these 3 points are even more important, I think, because I feel like if we get the help that we're supposed to get, we should get for midfield, we're going to be a solid team back to where we were, back to our best, if you will. But until then, let's get it across with like 3. Maybe Rodgers could lose his job again because of Liverpool. Alan says, yeah, I mean, there's so many people. I mean, hey, if you're into this, man, get your resume together, because there's a lot of people out there in the Premier League that are possibly on their last leg from, I mean, Nottingham Forest. I know you just signed a new deal, but that's kind of shady. Our boy Fat Frank, I mean, he has to be on his last legs. Rodgers, I think, will still turn it around. They had that run before the World Cup that kind of like saved this deal until Trevor starts. Mecca comes back bashing him. I think he's in good shape. But Rami, thanks a lot as always, man. We even got to talk about your boy Messi. So it's a happy Wednesday for you. Happy Wednesday to everybody. We'll be back tomorrow morning, bright and early, with the morning headlines. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.